Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cat's Track. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing this with your friends. Today's episode is with our friend Danielle Smith. Danielle was born right here in Calgary and is obviously a very proud Albertan. She's been married to her amazing husband, David, since 2006 and is a proud stepmother of David's son, Jonathan. They live in High River with their two dogs, Kane and Colt. Besides their loved ones, Danielle is most passionate about Alberta public policy, finding the right balance between free enterprise and individual freedom, and the role of government. Friend, you'll find her bio attached. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm really glad you're here. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Are you ready for the questions?
I think so.
Excellent. Okay, so why do you do what you do?
Well, at the moment, I don't do much because I did end up leaving radio probably, I guess we're about 7 days into my retirement from radio and onto something new. But the trend that has been in my career, most of my adult life, I've spent time in public policy. So yeah, I've tried different ways of trying to influence the public agenda. I worked at the Fraser Institute as a researcher. That was the first job. And then I moved into advocacy on property rights, working with just a terrific group of ranchers in Alberta, which brought me up to speed on a whole range of environmental issues. Then tried my hand at elected politics, school board. That didn't go so well. It's not the first job I was going to be fired from in political life. I got fired again when I was the Wildrose leader. Then also got into lobbying with Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Radio, television broadcaster. And the common thread through all of this is that I've been really wanting to research public policy ideas and to try to push the agenda forward. For me, the most important thing is to have some kind of influence. There was when I got hired on at Chorus, Roger Kincaid was the morning host at the time. And one of the things he said is, you want to be a thought leader. This is why you should be here. And I thought, yeah, I kind of do want to be a thought leader. That's of any phrase that anyone has said to me about what I do, that one resonated the most, is I want to identify trends, help to shape public opinion on them, help to change hearts and minds where I can, help to collaborate with those who disagree to find some common ground and see if we can try to solve some of this polarization that we have. And in the different roles that I've had varying degrees of success, a whole pile of failure into the mix, but every single experience has been a learning experience. So I suspect that what I do next is going to continue on in that vein, in being a thought leader in some other format and some other role.
Well, thank goodness. And from my perspective, Danielle, it's all been successful.
I know it's a funny thing, isn't it? I mean, I often joke that I get fired from every job I've ever had. And so when I look back on my career, I think, gosh, how many more do I have in me before someone's going to say, nope, we're not giving that girl another chance. But I've been so grateful because every time I have had an exit from a job, and some of them have been more calamitous than others, I've just had some wonderful people who've been willing to give me a chance. Peter Stockland, when I was at the Calgary Herald, getting fired from the school board, he looked at that as, hey, you must be pretty on the ball to get yourself elected to the school board in your 20s. So come on over. Yeah. And then when I left politics the way I did, and no one else would hire me, John Voss said, you know what, you might be the right fit because you're confident, you've got a strong opinion, and that's just what we need here. So I've been really grateful that over the years, there've been a few people who've been willing to pick me up, dust me off after I've fallen, and allow me the chance to prove myself again. So in hindsight, I've had a lot of missteps, but I think it just keeps giving me really wonderful opportunities to do new and interesting things.
Wow. And you've got raving fans everywhere. I know that you will have no trouble finding whatever that next adventure will be. And I look forward to celebrating.
Well, thank you for that. I also have a lot of detractors. This is the problem, right, in this new world that we're in, is that being a thought leader is perilous these days when you factor in social media onto the mix, because the Twitter is a weird world. I used to quite like it, but there's also a whole army of individuals who are identifying those who want to be at the lead in shaping public opinion, and then trying to tear them down and to stop them from having the influence. And so it's not as straightforward as it used to be.
No, it sure isn't. And you're right, very polarized.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And your top 3 things that you would like to share with us today?
Well, one of the things I would say is no, don't let yourself get stale. Don't get into a rut. That is one of the, I find that every 5 or 6 years is when it's time for me to move on. Sometimes whether I want to or not, I don't know if that's just a cycle with me or if that's kind of the normal cycle of a new career or a new approach. You come in, you don't know anything, there's nerves, and then you develop a little bit of ability, and then you get quite good at it. And then it begins to feel like it's a bit stale. And I think that's the point that you leave. You leave when people might still be wanting you to stay, when you still feel like you've got a lot more to contribute, but that it's time to move on. I think you can't really overstay your welcome. I think that there's a lot of people who want, or maybe think they want, a career for life, get one job and stay there forever. But the number of opportunities you have when you keep yourself open to trying new things is, I think, really what life is all about. So that's the approach that I've taken. The second thing I'd say is you have to be true to yourself, because there are lots of times in lots of positions where you have to make a choice of whether you're going to compromise. I don't think there's anything wrong with compromise. To me, compromise is where you find areas of common interest with another person where both of you win. That to me is what compromise is. You don't lose. You may not get everything you want, but you at least get some of what you want. But what you shouldn't do is give up some of who you are just to go along to get along. There's so much of that going on today that people are keeping their head down or not speaking up when they should be speaking up, not defending when they should be defending, not stating their true views when they should. And there is, it's perilous to do it, but I think you're a better person for it, because in the end, at the end of all of this, and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you've got to be able to do that with a clear conscience. So making sure that you find areas of compromise and collaboration is so important, because in this world, we also have to have strong connections, but there is a line, and you should never allow somebody to push you to do something or say something that you're not comfortable with. I think that is one of the things that we have a problem with right now, is that there aren't enough people who are stating strongly and proudly some of the positions they have. And it's it doesn't matter whether it's on social issues, doesn't matter if it's on energy issues, doesn't matter whether it's on political issues. Those to me are some of the most important conversations we need to have. And we need to learn how to communicate them. I guess that would be the third thing, is that you have to learn how to communicate your ideas, because one of the things when I started off in the career that I began in, I was a terrified public speaker. I was so nervous. And I remember always admiring the people that I saw on campus at the University of Calgary, because I was there at a time when Ezra Levant was there, and Naheed Nenshi was there, and a few others, and they were just superstars when it came to debate. And for me, I'd have my little notes, and I'd be, reading every word and not able to speak off the cuff. And so I always admired people who could do that. And so I worked at it, Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters, and I always made sure that I had a job that had a speaking component to it. And eventually the fear passes, and then you could go on to a new challenge. But it does strike me, especially in this world where we now have podcasts and YouTube videos and all the Zoom calls, if you can't clearly communicate your ideas and you can't do it with confidence, I think that's career limiting. I think I remember reading a line, I don't know if this is the best one to share, but it stuck with me. In the Dale Carnegie books that I read, one of the things he said is, if you can speak well, people give you credit for being smarter than you really are. And that has always worked for me. People give me credit for knowing an awful lot, only because I can string a couple of sentences together on most issues. And so it's a good little adage, but it also allows for that kind of connection as well. There's something about verbally connecting with people that creates, I think, a bit of a different type of relationship than if you're just communicating by email or by text or by Twitter. And so being able to master the oral word, I think, is vitally important.
That is good advice. I love it.
Well,
You've definitely mastered all of that, Danielle. That's awesome. Good advice.
Yeah. You can still, and I guess it's probably even more important than ever now, because it's very easy to misspeak on all of the issues that are out there that can create a few landmines. So being very precise in your language is probably more important than it ever has been, and we're all being quite careful about it.
Yeah, I've got lots to learn from you. I actually was quite vocal about a week ago on Facebook, and I had a whole bunch of people posting, and I tried moving back into the positive. It was too late, and then they started unfriending me. And
Oh no.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Let me give it 4. Just quit Twitter and Facebook. I guess here's what I've done, because I really have. I found that to be able to be in that Zen place, you can't be living in fear that somebody is going to start some kind of tear down campaign against your character. And so I had 41,000 followers on Twitter, but I had no problem leaving it, because I wondered how many of them are bots. They're not real people. How many of them are trolls? How many of them are people who are following, just waiting to make something trend with a fancy hashtag because they think it can get me in some kind of hot water? And so it was a friend of mine, because I was having quite a bit of anxiety about it in my last weeks at work. So I'm really worried that I'm going to push something out and my name's going to trend on Twitter, and it's going to end up with me leaving with a cloud over my head. And she said, quit Twitter. It never occurred to me to do that. And I did. And it was great. And then I quit Facebook as well. I have a small group of friends on Facebook. I've only about 400 people, but we really mostly keep up with what's happening in the food that we like to eat, and about what's happening with our pets and kids and that sort of thing, which is how I'm using Facebook right now.
Nice.
And I found a forum that I feel really confident in putting my ideas forward, because there are alternative platforms now. I'm on locals.com, which is a social media platform. But one of the things that they do is they charge a small subscriber fee, because just by paying a subscriber fee, number one, you have to be real, because you have to have a credit card associated with that. So there's no anonymous trolls on there. And when you're not anonymous, it really elevates the conversation. And so I've really developed this nice, robust community. So I get everything that I hoped I would get out of social media, but on a platform where there's far more respect and really great interchange. And so I think there's a lot of new platforms that are developing. Gab is another one that I'm hearing good things about. Parlay, I don't know if they're going to get up and running again, but I think that because Facebook and Twitter become so toxic, we're still seeking ways to connect with each other. And I would just say, look for the right platform, because once you find it, it does, then you don't live in dread that something is going to trend wrong on you, and it can give you a whole lot of peace of mind.
I love it. Good advice. I'm going to check that one out. Thank you.
By all means.
I'm excited to hear what the new frontier looks like for you, or a good news stories that you'd like to share in closing.
Well, I would say one of the things I really want to do is energy advocacy, and I have to figure out the best way of doing that. So I'm talking to a couple of different groups about how my vision might fit with theirs. But I think the one thing I've just started already is trying to work on making sure that the East understand how important Line 5 is to them, and what the ramifications would be if it got canceled. So I've got a group of other thought leaders, business leaders, and other communicators who are working on getting that message out through a new news media in Ontario called News Forum. And so to me, there's just a huge amount of opportunity through podcasts, through alternative media, through independent sites where you can create your own content. That's where I'm kind of exploring right now to try to figure out the best way that I can advance the issues that I care about. One thing I think we really need to do in Alberta, and I keep giving this message because I've done a number of speeches and forums with business leaders in the last little while, is we have to embrace what is coming our way on carbon taxes and carbon policy, and figure out a way to operate within the environment. Because I think what we're seeing pretty clearly is the vision that was put forward by the more extreme environmentalists, that everything could be put onto the power grid, all of our transportation needs, all of our industrial energy needs, all of our heating needs, and it could all be powered by wind and solar. That's just blown up. I mean, just look at Texas, and you can see with the failure of some of their natural gas power plants. Wind wasn't there as a backup. Solar wasn't there as a backup. In fact, it's the opposite. Wind and solar need natural gas as their backup. And that's not any way to build a power grid. So I think that we've now been able to see just in living color what a future with wind and solar only looks like, especially in this environment. The wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine when it's minus 30 out there. So what does that mean? It means we can embrace hydrogen. We can be an immense player in the new hydrogen economy. We can embrace carbon capture for storage, for creating new products. One of the things I've encouraged my business leaders to look at is one of the things we've always done so well in Alberta is that we have been able to look at a barrel of oil and a waste product that comes out of it and say, gee, can we turn that into something useful? And we've done that throughout our entire history of developing this resource. So this is just the new challenge. Can you take a waste stream, carbon dioxide, and turn it into something useful? And there's emerging technologies that, yes, you can. I guess someone on one of the calls I was on, you're able to make vodka out of CO2. Can you imagine like an energy sector, a CAP branded vodka taking the world by storm? So those are the things that I think are really exciting, is that we can now turn a corner and start having a really positive environmental message that goes along with our traditional industries. And that's kind of where I want to be. That's what I want to help shape the discussion around.
Well, I'm excited to hear that. Oh my goodness. And I want to promote it everywhere. So I'm going to watch the news forum, you said?
The news forum. Yeah, you got I'm doing some collaboration there. I'll be making appearances there along with a whole pile of others who feel just as passionately as I do about energy. And then we'll see what comes next after that. I haven't settled on a permanent job yet, but I got a few leads.
Oh, I'm sure you do, Danielle. I'm very excited for you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know your time is extremely precious.
Yes, yours too. My appreciation to you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Everyone, Danielle Smith, News Forum, and locals.com. 2 good tips. Lots of good tips. Thank you so much for joining us on Cast Track. We'll see you next time.